Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on Becoming by Michelle Obama. If for some reason you aren't aware, Becoming is a memoir by Michelle Obama, and this is a book that I really enjoyed. I actually listened to this on audiobook. I have the physical copy because my mom wanted to read it, which I thought was really sweet because she doesn't read, or at least not like recreational reading like this. Like she reads newspapers and stuff like that. So yes, I listened to this on audiobook, which I highly recommend the memoir in that fashion because Michelle Obama narrates it herself, and I honestly think that memoirs read by the people who write them are always so much better on audiobook. I'm not really going to do a plot synopsis because the plot is basically her life, but this book is broken up into three sections. The first section is called Becoming Me, the second section is called Becoming Us, and then the third section is called Becoming More. So the first section is basically her life from birth through like childhood and college, talking about growing up on the south side of Chicago, talking about her experiences with school, her brother, her parents, and then Becoming Us is her life basically after college when she had started working and met Barack and they started dating and eventually obviously got married and everything along those lines. And then it follows them like through part of their adulthood. And then Becoming More is about after Barack gets elected to be president. Like I think the second section ends on the election day. The final section is from when she becomes first lady moving forward. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this book. One of the things that she talks about both in this book, and I've also been like watching interviews like right around the time that this book came out, and I also got to go to the book launch at the United Center here in Chicago. So I've like heard her talk about this book and the events around this book and things like that quite a bit. And so one thing that she talks about is how like as first lady, and as specifically the first Black woman to be First Lady, there were a lot of things that she held back on in terms of her life and her story, just because she didn't want to distract from the things that Barack and the White House were trying to do. She didn't want to become the story. She didn't want to make it about herself or anything along those lines. And so a lot of times when she was put in situations, she was very purposeful about what she said and how she said it and things like that. And so for a lot of this book, it feels like Michelle Obama is really able to open up about her life and her circumstances and things like that. And it feels almost like revelatory because a lot of times when you think about politicians or people who are politics adjacent, they're very guarded. And even when they come out with books like this, a lot of times it feels like there's a little bit of an agenda. Like I haven't read Hillary Clinton's What Happened. I didn't read like The Audacity of Hope, partially because personally I feel like when books like that are coming out, they're written with the purpose of basically like convincing you of like who they are as politicians. I have read Dreams from My Father because that's a book that Barack Obama wrote prior to him like running for office and things like that. And if you remember earlier this year, I read Joe Biden's book. There's like this fine line that books by politicians or people politics adjacent walk, because a lot of times it feels like politicians are trying to sell you on themselves as human beings when they're like putting out books. And at least that's how it feels to me. I'm not saying that is their purpose behind them, but so that's a lot of times how it feels to me. And so like with this book, I was very intrigued to see sort of like what Michelle Obama was going to do with her story and how she was going to present herself. And for the most part, it feels like she's pretty open about her circumstances. She's honest about how she felt about different people and things that she's gone through. She's open about her family life and stuff like that. And she's not afraid to hold back. One of the big sort of news storylines that popped up right around the time that this book came out is that Michelle Obama admits that she had miscarriages. And that's not like a huge plot point in this book by any means, but the fact that she was willing to be open about it when she didn't really talk about that before is seen as sort of revolutionary, and it feels like Michelle Obama is more comfortable talking about her life now that she's no longer in the White House. That being said, once you get to the Becoming More section, basically from the point when Barack Obama gets elected as president, you can see that once again, she starts to shield herself just a little bit. The Becoming Me section feels the most honest and open, and the Becoming Us section feels pretty close to that level. But once you get to the Becoming More section, it feels like she moves back into that first lady role of being slightly more guarded about what she says, what she talks about. She doesn't talk about any of the controversy. She talks about the difficulties that they had with like the press focusing on minute things like what she was wearing or anything like that, or social faux pas and things like that, and how she didn't enjoy those things. She talked about how she had a difficult time living in the White House sometimes, you know, because it just feels a little bit weird sometimes to be surrounded by a full staff and security and all of those different things. And she talks a little bit about watching Sasha and Malia grow up and trying to do the best that they could to make them be normal children, or as normal as first daughters can be. But you can tell like she's holding back about those years of her life, and like part of me wants her to write another book in maybe like 10 years time or something like that, when she's had more distance from it and when she maybe can say a little bit more. It was either during the book launch event or in one of the interviews that I read, someone asked her whether or not she feels like now that she's no longer in the White House and being first lady, if she feels like she can be like completely open and honest. And she admitted that she doesn't feel that way because she recognizes that she's still being scrutinized, and like the fact that she will always be the first and she's still the only Black first lady, and that Barack is the only like Black person to be president, they're still going to be watched and they're still going to be scrutinized for the rest of their lives basically, and anything that they do is going to be held as like this ridiculous standard. And so like I feel like you can feel that in this book a little bit. But again, that's like my one main and only quibble with this book. So if you are looking for a book that talks about the politics and policies or anything along those lines, this is going to be very disappointing. If you want a book where it feels like Michelle Obama is like your best friend and you're sitting down for coffee together and catching up on life, this is the book for you. And the physical copy of the book does also come with photos, which is great, as you would imagine. Which, yeah, just love it. Love it a whole lot. I will say my favorite part of this book was reading all about her and Barack's like romance and dating life and everything, and like up until the proposal and all of those different things. Like I was swooning so hard for all of that. But that's just who I am as a human being, and I'm not ashamed of that. So yes, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. But again, it's not like a perfect book by any means. If you want a 1000% open and honest book, I don't think you're ever really going to be able to get that, but I think that this is pretty close to what we can possibly get in terms of openness and honestness when it comes to Michelle Obama's life. So that's everything that I have for this video. Leave a comment down below letting me know whether you've picked up this book and what you thought of it, if you've read it already, or if you have any questions about the book. Feel free to leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.